Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Leadership Medina County's monthly Lunch and Learn. This is Colleen Rice, Executive Director. Today we are excited to have 3 Leadership Medina County alumni with us to educate us about the Medina County Human Services Levy. Today's session is being recorded. If you are listening on your phone, please note that the speakers may be referring to slides during the presentation. We will provide the slides and a recording of the presentation on our website. Welcome to Ron Pato, Class of 2000, Laura Toth, Class of 2001, and Philip Titterington, Class of 2010.
Laura Toth, I'm with the Office for Older Adults, and Philip Titterington is here, and he is the Executive Director of the Medina County Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Board. Jeff Felton could not be with us today. He is the Director of Job and Family Services, and although all 3 of these agencies will be funded by this Human Services Levy, which is issue 11, in Job and Family Services, those funds are specific to Child Protective Services and Adult Protective Services. And together, this is a Human Services Levy. We provide human services to thousands of people across Medina County, people coping with challenges of aging, poverty, hunger, child care, mental health, addiction, recovery, and senior transportation. So these are all needs that are currently being met, but the need is growing, so we need to respond to that with levy funding. So that's what we've done. Again, our funding is just not keeping up with the needs that we're seeing in the county. JFS and the Adam Board have state funding, and all 3 of us have federal funding, and there are some of our primary funding sources. But Medina County overall is an outlier in Ohio because we have no dedicated local funding to tackle our challenges in any one of these 3 agencies. So there is no Senior Services Levy. There is no Job and Family Services Levy. There is no Adam Board levy. There are no levies particular to any one of these agencies in Medina County. Our population is certainly aging. The senior population is about 22% right now of the county's 178,000 plus people, and that will grow to about 30% of the county population over the next 10 years. So there was information that came out just this week from the Center for Community Solutions stating that the county, there are 10 counties in Ohio where the population age 60 and over outnumber the population of people age 18 and under, so seniors are outnumbering children. Medina County is not on that list yet, but yet is the key word because most of Ohio in the next 10 years, the number of seniors will outnumber the number of people 18 and younger. We're certainly coping with things that impact our community. Addiction and mental health issues can certainly impact anyone and really cuts across any demographic in the county. And the opioid and methamphetamine crisis really exacerbates the risk for these vulnerable populations and these issues that our residents are facing. Not only the person affected, it is not a one-person problem. Addiction is a family and community problem, and we really want to emphasize that because those are the people receiving treatment, not just the one with the addiction, but the effects and trauma on the family and the children of these individuals. Take it away, Philip.
Thank you, Laura. So as Laura mentioned, our agencies provide human services. The Adam Board is set up in statute, and we're required to not only identify what gaps in services, we're also trusted to be able to purchase and make sure that good quality services are available for mental health as well as alcohol, drug addiction, and we evaluate those, and to the extent that resources are available, making sure that we purchase what is necessary in identifying gaps. 91% of the Adam Board's budget is made up of state and federal dollars. We are very thankful for that, but with that comes a requirement for us to meet state and federal priorities. So the state and the feds are the ones who are indicating this is the priority that you're going to have to meet using our dollars. With local levy funding, it will allow the Adam Board and the other agencies to target and more specific Medina County needs. Medina County is a great county to live in. Sometimes it has different needs, it has different priorities, and we want and need a sustainable funding source in order for us to meet those needs. We would look at some of the levy funding to help us expand crisis services. I think we do a fantastic job with crisis services. However, more is needed. Crisis services are also one of those, the types of services that insurance, Medicaid, the state, the reimbursable rate and often some of the reimbursable services just aren't there. So requires local funding through the Adam Board and other funding sources to help pay for those services. And you know, with any growing county or population, the chance and the propensity for the need for more mental health or behavioral services increases. Also, kind of speaking on behalf of Jeff, over the last 4 years, Jobs and Family Services and the Children's Services have seen an increase in the number of child abuse and neglect phone calls that they need to investigate is increased approximately 93% over 4 years. Now, the amazing part is they are stretching themselves thin, they're meeting those investigation calls, and they're doing it with the same number of staff that they've had from 2014 to 2018. So the levy funding is going to help Jobs and Family Services hire children's services type case managers in order to go out there and make that positive impact and investigate. So we are a growing population. The use and the request for services is increasing. The need is there, but funding at the state and federal level just isn't keeping up with it. So we're asking and putting on the ballot this Human Services Levy, which will be divided amongst the 3 agencies that we have talked about. And by having it divided, it will help, it'll make each of these agencies accountable to one another. I think we have shown over the last decade that we work very closely with one another. We collaborate very well. Every person that comes through the door that needs and has a need, we do everything we possibly can to wrap services around them, to address the issues. So in order for us to do that, we meet quite regularly. We have and share each other's resources, but you can only do that so much. As that need increases, we need support in order to meet those needs.
Okay, I'm going to talk just a little bit about this slide that you're looking at, because it gives some, hard numbers that we've come up with. So at the Office for Older Adults, we provided over 38,000 home-delivered meals last year. So when I first got here about 8 years ago, it was just over 30,000, maybe about 31,000. So it grows, 800 to 1,000 additional meals every year. It has grown on average. These are people who are homebound by definition. They cannot drive. They are alone in their homes, or with a spouse, or with a disabled child or sibling. Those are the homes that we're allowed to deliver to through our grant. So just by definition, some really vulnerable folks. Our mission is to keep people aging in their homes for as long as possible because that's what they want. People want to age in their homes. So not only is this a meal service, it is a gatekeeper service. So we have drivers that go out. They are making contact with people every day. Hi, Mrs. Smith, how you doing? Is everything going okay? If Mrs. Smith doesn't answer the door, we're following up, we're calling them, we call their emergency contacts, and we're so dedicated to this program that if we still cannot get anyone, we will call the Sheriff's Department or the local police department to go and do a welfare check and make sure Mrs. Smith is okay. And really, that is as important or more important than getting that nutrition. So it's just a wonderful program. Additionally, we provide over 8,000 rides for senior citizens. We did in 2018. Transportation is a huge issue in Medina County, which mixes the rural transportation as well as the urban transportation for seniors. And that doesn't even include the loop rides, which we also provide to seniors free of charge. These rides are going to the doctor, they're going to the grocery store for nutrition, and we're even doing life-saving things like providing rides to people who need dialysis treatment. So it's all very important, and the need continues to grow as the senior population grows. Speaking for Job and Family Services, as Philip referred to, services rising at Children's Services Foster Care is up 48%. I know I have a history. I worked for 10 years at Medina County Children's Services, and when I left there, there were 38 to 40 kids in care, and now they're up around 100. I think they're in the 90s. So there's a great increase in children who are in foster care. Just the calls, as Philip said, for Child Protective Services are up 72% since 2012, and investigations are up 112%. And again, they're doing this with the same staffing that they've had for at least a decade, if not longer, the same number of caseworkers and of people answering the phone. Which is more in line with what I do right now, this money would go to help Adult Protective Services, and annually they investigate about 200 Adult Protective Service referrals, going out and make sure that adults are safe and are not being abused and neglected. And really a lot of their adult cases are financial exploitation, so they have family and friends with allegations that they're taking money and not doing things that may be on the up and up with the funds that seniors have. So they're investigating a lot of that. You want to speak to the Adam board?
Sure, thank you. And as just to reiterate what Laura has indicated is the need for services is increasing. One of our agencies just provided a report, and they had served about approximately 10,500 unique, unduplicated clients for treatment services, as well as another 4,500 for prevention and other types of services. And just to put that in perspective, in 2018 census had Medina County population at 179,000. So the number I just gave you represents approximately 8% of the population had contact with one agency. So that could tell you that there's quite a bit of need that's out there. Our funding was cut drastically in 2012, which we're trying to make up for as we go, and the way that we can do that is, once again, by collaborating with other agencies. Now, Laura mentioned Mrs. Smith as an individual that she would go and they would deliver a meal to. What happens sometimes when they go with Mrs. Smith, to take it further, is Mrs. Smith is there and she either is depressed or alone. So we have partnerships with the Office for Older Adults in which we can provide services. We have several different agencies that do senior case management, such as Catholic Charities, who can go into the home, follow up. We can get this individual connected with treatment, and we can also provide that treatment guidance assessment in that individual's home so that we can keep them in the most comfortable position that they are. So by having that kind of contract, and sometimes Mrs. Smith is actually an older adult who has been now watching grandchildren. So they become the guardian of the grandchild because of either an addiction or mental health or some other serious issue that has happened with the biological mother. So by having that contact isn't necessarily just they get a meal. It turns into a whole collaborative or a continuum of services. And in order for us, so as those number of meals increase, correlating, then the need for services will also increase. So once again, in this next slide, we had talked about how our staffs work very well together. I think it's a great collaborative, and just to kind of visualize, we are all actually in the same campus. We share the Office for Older Adults and the Adam Ward, and two community-based behavioral health agencies share the same building. Jobs and Family Services, Children's Services shares the same parking lot, and even when you have Catholic Charities, they are a quarter of a mile away. So we meet very often, and the needs increase. One of the others, kind of speaking now, we talked a little bit about the older adult, but on the Children's Services, we all collaborate together, and this includes like juvenile court, the health department, Board of DD, Job and Family Services, on what we call multi-system youth. So on the other end of the spectrum, we often see kids and families in severe crisis that need wraparound services. The cost of these services often amount to about $15,000 to $20,000 a month, but those are services that are dearly needed, so we sit and we collaborate on these particular cases as well. Put that in perspective is we've averaged over the last couple of years about 4 or 5 clients at a time. Today we're at 14. So those are 14 families that need quite a bit of services, and they're very costly services. And on the other end of the spectrum, as part of the mental health and the addiction board here, we are responsible and we monitor the number of individuals that are in our state psychiatric hospital. So over the last 10 years, we've averaged 6.7 individuals in our state psychiatric hospital. Over the last half a year, that number has risen anywhere from 14 to 20 a day that we have in the state psychiatric system. So those are individuals with severe persistent mental illness, which we are charged with doing what we can to reintegrate them back into the community. So once again, that need is up. Funding hasn't kept up with it.
Okay, so what we are requesting is a single 1 mil property levy for all 3 of our agencies. So we've all combined together, and that will be on the November 5th ballot. The cost would be about $3 per month per 100,000 of your property value, and that will generate for us about $5 million annually. The funds will be split between the 3 agencies, and we wanted to make clear who will get what. That's a big question that we've had. So $2.5 million per year would be scheduled to support Job and Family Services, $1.5 million to support Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Board, and $1 million to support the Office for Older Adults. And currently, again, our agencies are collaborating. We have a frequently asked questions document. We have a Facebook page that you can go to that answers a lot of questions. And then we have a really good chart that talks about funding in different counties compared to Medina County. I think that'll be coming up. But the usage of these funds for the Office for Older Adults, we're going to maintain and expand the meal program that was discussed as it continues to grow, and improve options for senior transportation. With Jobs and Family Services, that is specifically to add caseworkers. As Philip had said earlier, the number of caseworkers has been stagnant. They haven't been able to afford adding any casework hours. So there's just a lot of demand, whether that be in elderly case management, adult protective services, child protective services, or in their foster care program. And do you want to talk about the Adam Board funding?
Sure. The Adam Board funding is going to look at expanding services to make it simpler for people in all around the county to access services. And also we're going to focus on crisis services, as I mentioned earlier. Our crisis service and the need is increasing, but the reimbursable rate from the state is not. And also we have been working very closely with the recovery community, and the need for recovery supports is increasing, and we want to continue with that investment. Now, Laura mentioned this slide. This is a very telling slide. So this slide is going to show you.
Even though it's hard to read.
And we can send, we have another document that we can send as well. But what this says is this is the 10 counties of similar size to Medina County. And Medina County is the only county that does not have any type of levy to support any of these programs. As Laura mentioned, we are asking for a 1 mil levy, which will generate which will cost $3, less than $3 per 100,000 evaluation. And if you look at this chart, most of those counties on that chart have 2 or 3 levies, and the average amount for that levy is 3.47. So we are asking for 1 mil compared to this. We have had several questions that ask, why are we asking for so little? Well, because we want to make sure that you understand and continue to be good stewards of the dollars that we do receive and currently, and I think we will continue to do that with your support.
Okay, so back in May of 2015, we placed a similar ballot on the a similar issue on the ballot, I should say, and the turnout was under 10,000, and the support was 42.4 supported, and everyone else was against. And through our consulting firm, we have evaluated that it's much more likely to, well, first of all, we've gotten the word out so much better than we did in 2015, and we've responded to questions people had. That's why there's a slide that says this is exactly how much money each agency will get. This is how we're collaborating together. This is how we compare to other counties. So we've had really positive results in some surveys that we've done, and we've determined that now is the right time. You know, people have asked us, why are you putting this levy on the ballot right now? Well, first of all, we have real needs, and we want to respond to those needs that we have, and they're growing. And we're just trying to respond and keep up with the needs in Medina County. And second of all, that it's just, you know, there's no perfect time to ask people to give more. We realize that there are other things out there, but now is the right time, and with the help and support of the commissioners as well as our consulting firm, we have chosen this is the right time to put issue 11 on the ballot.
And that slide represents, we did our homework early on,
yeah.
And you, the voters that were polled, indicated that yes, we would support, we do need this levy.
Mm-hmm.
Because without the levy, I keep saying that we're doing a good job collaborating, but eventually if the funding isn't going to keep up with it, our agencies are going to be forced to put people on long waiting lists or actually turning people away. So we don't want to necessarily have to really prioritize to an extreme. We want to be able to serve whoever needs service who walks through our doors.
And just to build on that feasibility, we before we were approved by the commissioners to put the levy on the ballot, we did phone surveys. We talked to a lot of people that were representative of the demographic in Medina County, which you can see there. From the outset, without hearing, you know, what was even particular about the levy or how it would support these agencies, people supported it at a rate of 62%. Once we went through everything and what the levy was all about, that support for this levy grew to 68%. So I think people are realizing there is a need, a defined need out there, and are willing to support our agencies and human services in Medina County. And that's just more breakdown of the same phone surveys that were done that can be reviewed.
We wanted to be as transparent as possible so that you would see the process that we're going through. So we've added those slides for you to kind of review as we go forward.
Mm-hmm. So just in kind of summarizing what we're doing in our messaging, the need, as we talked about and shown you through slides, if you get a chance to view those, the need for the human services in Medina County is growing, but funding certainly has not kept up. And when a child, adult, senior, or family is in crisis, we are all there, whether that be the ADAM Board, Office for Older Adults, or Job and Family Services. We are all there to protect and offer a path to a better life, whether it's through something like providing a meal, or whether it's through something like working through case management or working through recovery services. All three agencies have critical needs that are growing, but the levy is really one small levy, and we don't want to send anybody away. The object is to not send anyone away, not make anyone wait for these services. So this is, I'm going to turn it over to Ron now, who may have.
Yep, Q&A, it's okay.
Oh, okay. I'm going to turn it over to Ron, who may have things to add or lead us through some questions. And please, if you have any questions, we're more than willing to answer those. So, Ron.
Well, thanks, Laura. And I want to publicly thank Laura and Philip and Jeff for everything that they do. In my time working with these leaders, the passion they have for what they do is real, and the care for the people they serve is off the charts. This is not a job to these three leaders, and as we all know, leadership starts at the top, and they drive their values and beliefs through the system. As a foster parent, my wife and I have fostered kids for over 20 years now, and I've seen firsthand the great work that each of these three agencies do. Many times when foster kids come to care, unfortunately more times than not, one or both of their parents have a drug addiction or they have a problem, and so they'll get touched by Philip's group. There are issues in terms of needs of the parents, and so job services gets involved, and in Laura's world, we're now seeing grandparents become foster parents, and so we touch the older adults as well. But at the end of the day, there are thousands of county residents, including the children and the elderly and those that are addicted, that get help from these three agencies. And as Philip and Laura have said many times, the funding just is not kept up. I just have a couple of questions maybe to get the Q&A started, and we'll go from there. Philip, to you or Laura, as we all know, people affiliated with leadership in Medina County truly do care about the county. So to the people on the line today, or to those who will listen to the recording, what can they do? How can they help? Philip, start with you.
Thanks, Ron. First thing that comes to my mind is vote.
Yeah.
Make sure you're registered to vote and you vote. And of course, vote for the levy would be wonderful. You could spread the word about the need. You can continue to send individuals who you identify having need to our agencies so that we can provide the services. As we go through this campaign, anything you can do to get the word out more, like even a yard sign or any kind of support, all those little things help.
I think I would agree on that. We have if you're listening to this now, we have a fundraiser coming up Friday at the Medina Eagles on October 11th. So we're pushing issue 11 on the 11th. It's $25. There's a basket auction, and please stop by and show your support. We'll have levy materials available. Also, Colleen has said this will be public. It's being recorded. Show it to people you know. Show it to your friends, or just talk it up with your neighbors or the people you see out and about. Philip was saying before we started, he struck up a conversation at Aldi's because of something he was purchasing. I mean, the need may arise, so the better educated that you can be about issue 11, I think the better we all will be.
I want to be clear, one of the things, Laura, that you touched on was the survey that was done before you went to the commissioners, and the 62% and then the 68% as it became more educated about the levy. Just to be clear, that was an independent third party that did that, right? So,
correct.
So it's not a we didn't rig those results,
no.
Right? We wanted to know the pulse of the people in the county.
Absolutely. I do believe it was taken from likely voters, but then it was a random draw to meet the demographics of the county, like men, women, Republican, Democrat, Independent, those type of things. But yeah.
That's great.
I don't know who was called.
And Colleen, I have more questions to ask. Are there any questions from the audience?
No questions right now, but that might mean because they don't know how to post a question. So you can either post a question in the chat bar. If you're calling in by phone, you can use *6 from your phone, or click the question icon on your computer. We'll answer those questions to the best of our ability while we're here on this conference call today. So hoping to get some questions from you in the audience, so let us know what you think. Go ahead, Ron.
Thanks. Some of the numbers that the two of you shared really struck me. Laura, I'll start with you. You talk about 38,000 home-delivered meals and 8,000 riders, which, you know, I'm just a banker, but those numbers are pretty big. But we also know that those that are 65 and older, today they make up about 22% of our population in Medina County. And over the next 10 years, that number is going to go to 31%. So as you talk about the need, that kind of reinforces it, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and actually, just to correct that, is age 60 and over, not 65.
See?
But yeah, that absolutely just reinforces and shows you, and really, it's not only that people are aging in Medina County, which they are, but there's also an influx of seniors into Medina County, which makes that population number grow even more. Medina County is a wonderful place to live. It's an awesome place to live. And a lot of people are bringing their parents in. There are, I mean, just drive through any one of the cities or suburbs of the municipalities and you will see senior housing complexes going up that really cross any income level. And we have seniors moving into the county. We have people saying, Mom, Dad, come down here. I want you to be by me when you age. And we have these services that are absolutely wonderful that we can provide and that people are taking advantage of. So as that population is booming, we have the needs growing. And just to give you a quick stat that was done to show you the senior population growth, Western Reserve Area Agency on Aging commissioned a study of population growth across the 5-county area they cover, and this was done about 10 years ago. So this information is a little bit dated, but it talked about population growth of seniors across the 5-county area. And in Medina County, overall, all ages, the population in the first decade of the 2000s was about 15%. That's pretty typical for population growth, about 15%. But the population of seniors grew 75% in Medina County during that time period. So it's just between people moving in and people aging. So it's just a population that continues to grow, and we will be here and responding to those needs in whatever manner we can.
That's staggering. Go ahead, Philip.
So with the new seniors places that are coming up in the complexes, would your services still be required, or are those self-contained?
No, a lot of people are moving in and requesting services through us. So we have people who have just moved into new housing complexes that are calling us for meals already or for transportation because they didn't come with a car, they're unable to drive. So we're providing transportation, and a lot of those services are ancillary to the new complexes that are going up. So thanks. Good point, Philip.
Well, we have a question from a caller. The question is, how does the mental health ward help or intervene when individuals may be identified as potentially committing violent acts? We hear so many mass shooters having underlying mental illness.
Well, good question, and I'll do my best to answer that. All the law enforcement is, they go through a crisis intervention training. So law enforcement agencies and the officers they learn how to identify mental health, what are the warning signs of mental health. Obviously, when you start talking about violence, they're going to take care of that first, but often they come to a scene and they can decompress I'm at a loss for a word here, but they can identify the individual, they can kind of talk them down, and at that point, we would get, and they would contact our crisis services, who was on call or 24 hours, 7 days a week, and then they would take the next step and work with them. So they can de-escalate the situation.
Can you talk a little bit about prevention services that you support in the schools and things of that nature to, somebody who may be battling mental health early in their life?
Well, thank you. Recently, the Adam Board helped sponsor with Kent State University the Mental Health First Aid Program. And we worked with Kent State to provide funding in all the different school systems who are now trained in mental health first aid, which If you haven't heard of that program, I suggest you take a look at it online. We have different community trainings that are available, but simply it teaches individuals, students, and adults on what are the warning signs, and then what to do after those warning signs. In addition, we've partnered with Medina City Schools, who has just recently brought in the HOPE Squad. And the HOPE Squad is peers who identify mental health, other issues, suicidology, in other students, and they work together. So that's just part of the mental health type prevention programming. Throughout the whole county, each school district is doing a fantastic job with different prevention, mental health, whether it's through partnerships with the Adam Board or within their own school system. And you know, every day we're learning more and more and working more and more with the schools, and they're doing a fantastic job with that.
Another question from one of our listeners: how will this levy help make services more accessible to people who don't live in Medina City proper?
It's a great question, and I understand that, you know, with Medina City, you take a look, and we're building this campus, and because of location, what the Adam Board speaking on, we want to replicate what we're doing here. So currently, over the last couple of years, we've reestablished services in some of the surrounding areas. For example, in Wadsworth, there's a physical office space and one park center. So Alternative Paths can provide both AOD, substance abuse, and mental health. I know Ohio Guidestone, which is another big agency that we fund, is operational throughout the county. They do a lot of in-home treatment. They work within the house. They reduce the transportation barrier there. Catholic Charities is all around, and they do in-home services as well. But we understand more is needed. So with this levy, we are going to take a look at how we can, either via satellite offices, bigger presence, reduce the transportation barrier, get more services available in those local and outlying areas. So that is definitely a priority that we're working on.
I can speak to older adult services. I think that when it comes to things like home delivered meals, if you look at where we deliver, and I have an excellent chart that is not on this presentation, but if you look at where we deliver services to, like we had said, or I had said, we delivered over 38,000 meals. If you break that down per municipality or township, which I've done, and maybe I can give that to, I will, Colleen's nodding, I can supply that to her so it can be posted. Of course, most of the meals are done in Medina, Brunswick, and Wadsworth, as they're the municipalities that have the population centers. But if you look at per capita, we are actually delivering more meals in the Lodi area than we're delivering in Brunswick per capita. Now the numbers aren't the same, but so we do have services in the outlying area. I do think that we would do a lot better with providing services if we did a better job getting the word out. We have a newsletter, we have a website, we will mail the newsletter to people if they request it, but we don't do any kind of bulk mailing. So that's the kind of thing I would like to see us, if we're able to grow in any way, to be able to get the word about services out there so people know. A lot of times there's a crisis before, and even with children's services or the Adam Board, a lot of times it's reactionary. And I really like to see all of our services kind of flip that over to prevention. How can we prevent a crisis from happening so people know where they need to go if something happens in their lives for help?
And piggybacking off of Laura here, under the Adam Board, we've been trying over the last couple of years to communicate more about what's out there, what we do. We do have an office in Lodi as well. And we want to market more about our services, how to access our services and such. But at the same time, we need to be sensitive to, as we market more, we want to hit more, but we have to have the infrastructure set up in order to meet that growing demand.
Absolutely.
I mean, the worst thing is we say we have these services and then you're on a super long waiting list. So with the levy, we're going to be able to do a very good strategic plan, and not only increasing our visibility, but also developing an infrastructure that can handle it.
Phil, I want to circle back on the part of your presentation when you talked about the 1 mil and compared it to the 10 other counties that are of like size Medina County. And I'm just looking at 4.7, 2.21, 4.55, 2.3, 2.85, 4.2, 3.9, 3.04, 4.55, and 3.4. I think the people in this room, and more importantly, the audience that we have here today, the phrase "doing more with less," I think really resonates with people today. And these three agencies have clearly done more with less. And we've already talked about the population, the senior population over 60 is going to grow by 9%. So that need's going to go up. Philip, you talked about in Job and Family Services, the 48% increase in kids in care. And one of the things this levy does, and you probably could and need more than 1 mil, but I know being fiscally responsible is important to the three agencies, and clearly to this point you've proven that you're fiscally responsible because this is the first time you had to ask for help. And being in the meetings, it's almost begrudgingly, but we need it. Philip, with the income from the tax, when you get money from federal and state, they can be pretty prescriptive in how that money goes. But if we get local support, you can tailor some of that money to specific needs of our county, can't you?
Yes, Ron, good point. Part of the board, the Adam board, is made up of some very engaged individuals, and we do a strategic plan and identify what are local priorities, what's needed in Medina County. We take data from all the different surveys that are out there. We collaborate with different agencies. We reach out to the community. And local levy funding provides us with the best flexibility to hit those priorities. When you're talking feds, they're very descriptive. They're very restrictive. You must use it on X. States, a little bit leaner, but local is going to give us not only predictable income, but flexible.
Did you have anything to add to that, Laura? No? Okay, great. Just a comment from one of our listeners. The listener says, shout out to Nicole Harris for the wonderful work she does for the kids at Garfield. Her services are invaluable, and I hope they can continue. Thank you to the Adam Board for funding the agencies that enable people like her to help our children grow in such a great environment.
Thank you.
That's great.
That's wonderful.
All right, I want to thank you, Ron, Laura, and Philip, for educating us about the Medina County Human Services Levy. To listen to this session again, visit our website at www.leadershipmedinacounty.org or our Facebook page for the link. If you have ideas about future Lunch and Learn sessions, please contact our office at 330-721-7118. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you for taking your time.